Well, I want to thank you so much for joining us for one of our HFA webinars. I'm Mark Schumacher, the CEO of the Home Furnishings Association, and it's always my pleasure to lead great conversations with key retailers, key program providers, anyone that can really lend themselves to the subject matter to help you grow your business and really do a better job. So we've got a great subject matter today. We're talking about social commerce, and this is a growing area that is something, if you're not thinking about, you need to. We're going to explain that why, and we're going to give you some great takeaways today. I want to mention to you, though, that we, of course, will take your questions. There's a chat function on your screen. If you have some questions you want to have answered, please type them in there. We'll do our best to get to those questions. That's number one. Number two, if you go to myhfa.org, you will find all, and I mean all, of the tremendous webinars we've done over the last number of months. You can go there, you can grab them on demand, and you can really have a chance to sit with the subject matter even more, share it if you want. We really encourage that. So once again, myhfa.org, it's really the place to go for all sorts of great information to help. So I want to introduce our panel today. We've got three professionals here that I think are really going to help us with this subject matter. We have David Enos. He's the president of Phelps Digital. This is a company that really helps folks navigate what is becoming more and more of a complex digital landscape out there. David, we appreciate you joining us. We also have Michael Corrales. He's the co-founder of Unlimited Furniture Group. It really known as an innovative entity, and that's something that social commerce is certainly a piece of. And Vanessa Leeson, she's general manager of Michael Allen Furniture and Design, and she really handles a huge part of their marketing and merchandise side of the business, to which this is all a part. So David, Vanessa, Michael, thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate having you here. And this is one of those subjects where I think we do a disservice if we don't right out of the gates kind of define it, because there are some confusing aspects as to what social commerce is. And I say that because we know that a lot of people joining us today who have put in questions in advance, there's even a lot of confusion there. So David, I'm going to start with you. What is your easiest, best definition of what social commerce is?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of different ways to define it, but I think we'll probably all find a common thread in that. Social commerce today is the intersection of social media and commerce, e-commerce. So whether that's through social platforms like Facebook or Instagram, or anywhere you're building a community or you're fostering a community and you're trying to put yourself out there, I think that's the easiest way to really define social commerce. How you do it is a much different story, but the basics of it really come down to how you communicate with your community through the different social networks that are out there today. And the number of social networks just continue to grow. So.
And I guess Michael, that you have those communications, but with the whole focus on transacting. I mean, that's what we're talking about here with social commerce. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Sure. I mean, bringing something into an actual transaction is something that can be a little bit more difficult. Understanding your audience is probably the most important thing. And once you understand the audience and what they're interested in, for us, for example, we do a lot of glam product, over the top, oversized product, and we're known for that look. Understanding your marketplace, understanding what your client is looking for, hitting the price point, that really is what will ultimately transact into having a person check out with your product. Is really
appreciate that. So Vanessa, when you talk to anybody internally about social commerce, how do you put your spin on it? How do you define it?
Well, we're a single store, and we have a lot more success in getting the person in our store. So that's our whole goal when we're interacting with them on any kind of an inquiry, whether it be by Facebook, email, website, however they're getting to us. So our goal is to get them in to our store so that we can work with them. That's pretty much how we operate.
So I guess, and David, I want to just take this one step further, just so we can really be clear about it, so everybody has the same vocabulary. So what's the difference then between this and just what we would refer to as social media marketing or digital marketing? What's the differentiator here, so we understand this lane that we're really trying to define today?
Yeah, I think the difference between how people can sometimes lump digital marketing and then social media, you're both trying to accomplish a similar goal, and that is meeting your customers where they are, getting information. There is a big difference between somebody going to Google and typing in a search for a category or a specific product, and then somebody being on Facebook or Instagram or YouTube or in their inbox, and you're trying to communicate with them in a way that's a little bit different. They might not be actively raising their hand, but that's a place where they go to get information, whether it's news, whether it's stories about, friends, whether it is insights on what's happening in certain industries. There's all sorts of ways that you can really navigate the social side versus, say, the Google search or even YouTube side. But for me, I believe that the social side of social commerce is really thinking about how you interact in a social setting. Today, that's digital, a little bit different than your old social commerce, which might have been out in person at networking events or community gatherings. And so it's bridging that same type of approach and experience, but bringing it online.
Okay. And so how important, and we're going to dig into a lot of specifics here, but Michael, how important is this element in the overall scope of the business that you do? Is this one of those areas you look at as a huge, growth potential? Is it a decent percentage? Is it not quite where it needs to be? How would you place it in the overall portfolio, if you will, of ways to connect with customers?
So I think ultimately what it is, it's a second opportunity for any brick and mortar store to reach a larger audience. For us as a company, being in New York, we're in an area where customers are very plentiful, as opposed to someone who could be possibly located somewhere in the Midwest or a small town. By having the right platform, you could ultimately just really increase your audience and expand your reach. For us, we ship outside of the country, we ship out of our state so often, and a big part of that is because of our social media reach. And our clientele a lot of our clientele happens to be outside of our area, and a lot of that has to do with our reach on social media. So I would say it's very important.
Okay. And Vanessa, just lastly for you, say a single store operation, how does this fit in?
Actually, I agree with the reach. It allows us to reach a lot more people. We have a lot of people. We're a kind of a destination place. A lot of people come here to enjoy the lake, the bridge, and so forth. So we have a lot of people with second homes that live all over the country. And by having that additional social media reach, they're able to find us better. But it also gives us a chance to interact with them before they even get here. It's amazing how many people we're able to start things with before they even arrive in our city. It's great.
So I'd like to just go ahead and dig into some of the specifics here, because there's a lot of great aspects of this that people are asking about that I think will help us to sort of peel the onion, because there's an awful lot to this. And let's start out, and this just happened to be the top of the list that I have here. There's a real question when it comes to the content aspect of things, and how to efficiently this is the question, how to efficiently post on these social media platforms, et cetera, to really encourage this the commerce piece of this. David, what about that? Are there effective ways to do that? I think everybody's always looking for, what are those magical ways?
Yeah, and to make sure I've got the question right, is what is the type of content, or how do you efficiently execute posting to all these different platforms?
I think it's a little bit of both. Let's take it twice. Let's talk the efficiency first, and let's talk content second, because we have a couple people on here who also are creating content. So let's talk about the efficiency first.
Absolutely. So from an efficiency standpoint, a lot of these platforms can either be connected through the account level that you have. So if you've got posts that are going out to Facebook, you can sync those up to Instagram. If you've got numerous accounts that you're working with, and that goes all the way down to individual store levels, you might want to look at different tools that allow you to sort of post at a central spot. Maybe something like a Hootsuite, I believe, might be a good idea for people to be, just researching and learning about. But that helps you take that one central post or that one central piece of content and then distribute it out to different areas that you're trying to reach. And so there's new tools every day, I feel like, that seem to pop up that are going after that efficiency piece to make it easier for somebody to connect everything into one, make it centralized, and then have centralized distribution.
So you don't have to reinvent the wheel, is what you're kind of saying here then, so that the efficiency is coming from the fact that you're not creating separate postings for multiple different channels?
Yeah, best practice would be to look at which channel gets different engagement by certain posts, because in Instagram, you're going to have a different audience. And so what you post to Facebook might be good for that audience. But when you really start to analyze data and figure out what your Instagram following, interacts with and what type of ad you're trying to put out, or whether you're trying to do shopping on that, it allows you to really, one, figure out which type of post and content works best. But if you're just trying to get off the ground and get started, it's not a bad idea to post the same content to both. That way you've at least covered your bases. But, if you're in level 2, 3, 4, you really should be looking at the different types of content that you produce for each channel. And I think there's probably a decent audience out there today that does that, and it's the right way to do it. You've got to make sure you're measuring the effectiveness, what people engage with, and then understand the channel and the audience that's really engaging with you at that point.
Is that, Vanessa, is that something that you look at with regularity, is what that engagement looks like across the different social channels, or talk a little bit more about that from a you actually doing it?
Most definitely. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
That's good.
We find that Facebook has a demographic of, say, women 45 and older, as an example, but our Instagram has a younger following. So that makes a difference, even though we'll post the same thing sometimes on Instagram as we have on Facebook, but we do find that we'll do some different content on Instagram because there's a whole demographic that just lives on Instagram. They don't even look at Facebook. So I totally agree that once you know your demographic, then you kind of cater to what that demographic is paying attention to.
So that's, one way to do it. But Michael, I guess the question is then, and all of that is great, utilizing some of the data and some of the trends and things like that. But how do you utilize those in your business to increase engagement? Because so many people are out there looking for ways to increase their numbers. How do you put all that together on a daily basis where you are?
So to kind of pick up where Vanessa and David had left off, I think, again, it's very important to understand that each channel has its own audience for the most part. There are different demographics that are on Facebook as opposed to, TikTok and Instagram, and understanding like what your audience is currently, looking for. So let's say if someone is on TikTok or, let's say Instagram, for example, making sure that your stories are very current. Instagram is really, they're all of the handles are really changing every day. And you got a lot of people now that are on Instagram and they're not even scrolling through like they used to. They're literally just going through stories. So if your stories aren't updated constantly and you post something, you may notice that there is a drop, and the drop is really also could lead to, you not keeping your story current. Another example that works really well for us is, you want to make sure you're incorporating music and video now. People are more interested now in music and video than they are just looking at a silhouette of, let's say, just a dresser or a bed. I think it's really capturing the audience and really having them, be more engaged. If it's a song that they really like, they're going to stay on your page and they're going to really want to look at the rest of the video. Just little things like that are important.
And the funny part about it is, I can't tell you, it's like you were in my head, because you just described how I currently go through Instagram, which is I'm finding I am hanging on the storylines a lot more than I am the general scroll through. So you totally called me out on that one. I also think, though, that it's interesting that as we look at, and David, I'm not trying to poo-poo expertise, but there's a part of this too that, as I hear you guys talk about this, is also just look around you. How do you, nobody can talk about my demographic better than me, right? I'm in the middle of the demographic. What are my habits? What are my friends' habits? Who am I connecting with? So David, isn't an important part of this is to be, I'm going to say a consumer of it, but in many ways, can we not just learn about looking around us? What are your kids on? What are your, Vanessa talked about the female audience on Facebook. Well, I've got 3 of them in my family, so I see that. Isn't there a part of this that says also just look in front of your face sometimes? I don't want to oversimplify it, but David, am I barking up the wrong tree here?
No, you're really not. If everybody could stop and record what they do on their phones and then sort of like play that back and think like, gosh, this is how I interacted on Instagram. This is what I did on TikTok. This is what I did on Facebook. Here's how often I check my email. you've got the playbook that you need to go and execute against. Because there's lots of people who look just like us across the country that have the same sort of profile and makeup and interests and habits, and hopefully we all know who our customer is and who we're trying to reach. So think about how they interact, and often more times than not, advertisers try to overcomplicate it when really it's the fundamentals of, gosh, statistically people are hanging out in the stories more than they are scrolling through, or they're searching for hashtags or certain accounts or people they follow, and they're going down that rabbit hole. And it's really not to oversimplify it, but it's the truth. We just have to look at ourselves sometimes and take a step back and say, what do I do and how do I do it? And understand that if you ask an employee or a customer, they might have a similar answer, and it's good to do that every now and then. Stop and ask, how do you do this? How are you interacting with these people?
Yeah, and you're really learning how to navigate and really understanding it more. For those of you that are connected with me on LinkedIn, you know what my mantra is: don't turn common sense into rocket science. I think that's a piece of this here. Not to say that we don't need good nuance and really understand what's going on. So I don't want to have that misconstrued. I want to throw something out here because, Michael, you're the first person that said it, and this has been a question here. A lot of people are asking about TikTok, techniques for using it or how to use it, the importance of it in your overall advertising. So I'll let you start with that. Is TikTok becoming a more and more of a player for this type of social commerce we're talking about?
So I think TikTok is definitely becoming a real player in our space or in any type of social commerce space. One thing I'll tell you is I don't think they're there yet in a sense of like where Facebook and Instagram is. It's a lot more difficult to basically turn a sale from a TikTok unless you're leading that TikTok video back to your Instagram, where there's a way for them to actually check out at the moment. But I do see that changing. I think that just like Instagram there was no checkout on Instagram in the past, and ultimately that ended up changing. And I think it's just a matter of time before they realize that there's going to be different ways for them to turn these videos that you're getting millions of hits on that are going viral into actual transactions.
David, can it be connected back to your Instagram? Can you connect the TikToks that way?
Yeah, you can. So there's like all these different paths you can follow to sort of, I want to say, connect a dot from A to B and somehow get to an attribution, not necessarily like a pure attribution model, but when you think about in your own experience, you've probably seen on certain people's pages, they've got links to their TikTok account or they're calling out their TikTok account. Even more so on Instagram today, more people are posting the TikTok video to their Instagram account. So you can see the video and then you've got the little TikTok emblem in the bottom. But yeah, I think Michael's right in the form that TikTok has not really made it transactional necessarily to be in our industry, and I think that will happen. But yeah, you just have to make sure that you're connected to all these different platforms and then try to follow the breadcrumbs that you can, even if they're limited.
Because if you're talking about driving engagement, at the moment it might not be transactional, but it's a way of driving engagement. Vanessa, have you delved much into TikTok or come across it much in your world?
It's kind of been a debate in our store. Some feeling that they're definitely not there yet, but is it because of TikTok and the content that you do see on it? Is it something you want your brand associated with? Because there's a lot of X-rated stuff, let's say, on TikTok. And so we're kind of watching it. We have some employees that they can do personal stuff, like if they want to post something. The gal that does our merchandising as an example, if she wants to do it on her TikTok, she can, but we don't have our company on TikTok. But it has been a debate in the store as to do we do it?
I'm glad we brought it up because I think that you're speaking for a lot of the retailers out there that are just still, not certain about it and still, being very, very careful. Believe it or not, we're a third of the way through. I knew it was going to be like this with this group, but I want to, for those of you that just jumped in here, we're talking to Vanessa Leeson. She's GM of the Michael Allen Furniture and Design. Michael Krause, co-founder of Unlimited Furniture Group, and David Enos joining us. He's the president of Phelps Digital. So thank you for that, because TikTok was something that people were curious about. Since we're talking about these social channels by name, here's an interesting comment, and I'm just going to throw this one out. This is a general It's like a game show. This is your toss-up question. Or wants to jump in and go for it. This is what the statement that was made. Facebook used to be huge for us. Now it seems dead.
Oh, I'd love to address that. We have a Facebook personality. So we have a person in our store that everybody loves to follow. He's high energy, just can't wait to see what he's going to do next. But by having that Facebook personality, it makes a difference on our Facebook because people want to, and having new and relevant content. So everybody always has something new to look at, but personal stories from staff, you know, like on Father's Day, Mother's Day, those things really engage people. They love those personal stories, getting to know people beyond the workplace. But that's really helped us a lot.
So that's how you keep it fresh, so it's not quote unquote dead. Gentlemen, any thoughts about that? That it's really not a question, but a comment, just saying that for this one entity, saying Facebook used to be huge, now it seems dead.
Well, I'll say Facebook, I wouldn't call it dead, but I could say that Facebook is definitely, with all the new handles that are coming out in regards to like TikTok and Instagram, Facebook has definitely taken a backseat to these other channels. Now, you could say there are demographics that may spend more time on Facebook. Yes, I agree with that. But I think the engagement part of social platforms is more geared towards, for transactions, is more geared towards Instagram, because I just feel like the actual handle itself is more geared towards somebody actually adding to cart, checking out, as opposed to Facebook. If somebody's looking at a video, it's a little bit more difficult to actually have a person check out. Unless you're on Marketplace or doing something along those lines, you're not going to really get the same type of transactions. We've really closed out really large orders, container orders overseas, just through Instagram. And I'll tell you a quick, if I have the time, I could tell you
Of course, go for it.
quick story how we, when we first started Instagram years back, I didn't think anything of it. I was actually down in Miami with a buddy of mine. He's like, you know, why don't you try this thing Instagram? So I thought it was a good idea, and you know, we tried it out. We started posting pictures. We ended up getting a client of ours who reached out, ended up becoming a client from Abu Dhabi. Asked if we could ship to Abu Dhabi. We said, sure we can. So this person ended up taking pictures from our Instagram, snapping them back to us, and asked us for a quote. So, you know, we created a quote. It was a lot of pieces. So the first thing we thought was like, listen, it's fake. This is probably not a real person. I mean, I think anyone would have thought that in the beginning of Instagram, right? So this person responds back to us. Everything looks great. You know, there's no wiring instructions. So then we said, you know, maybe it is a real person. So this person, this person ended up being a very large client of ours to this day, and still making purchases in the Middle East and in Africa through. And this originally came from Instagram. So
interesting.
Yeah, so I think the engagement, when you have these tangible items, I think Instagram in the beginning, it was more like like I said, posting a picture of a dresser or a bed, but it's really changed. I mean, now you really want to do, you know, create beautiful renderings, create vignettes, and really have people understand and really look at these spaces and say, wow, I really want my home to look this way. It's not so much about like the piece of furniture. It's about the lifestyle. It's about creating the ambiance of what a person really wants their home to look like. And I think it's a little bit easier to achieve that on Instagram as opposed to Facebook.
David, let me ask you a question with that in mind, because there's a ton of people in our industry, and probably a ton of them listening today, who are still invested a bit in Facebook. While it might not be the channel of choice in certain aspects right now, is it still something that you should definitively have in your social media portfolio, if you will?
Absolutely. I think we've seen shifts in budgets from clients of all different ranges and sizes, especially in the last 2 years. I think as more people gravitated from being in an office and being at home, they were spending more time on these platforms at times that they may not have been. And so the one thing that we've seen a little bit of a difference in is their approach is not necessarily to say like, gosh, how many sales am I going to drive from Facebook? So their expectation has changed a bit, but how many influence sales can I match back? So if you really look at how Facebook can be a successful platform, is to kind of pair that up against your e-commerce or in-store sales, take the emails, match them back against your advertising on Facebook, and be able to say, you know, I'm not going to attribute 100% of this towards a direct sale, but along the way, maybe I'll give 10% credit or 20% credit because They clearly saw an ad on Facebook. They then, went to our website, they left, they came back 2 weeks later, they made a transaction. So, our window of opportunity was 30 days or 60 days, but we were able to get in front of them along the different journey points that they had. And so I think there's more of an expectation change that people have come to understand, is maybe it's not one-to-one like you see in apparel or things like teeth whitening. There's all sorts of high velocity products that do really well on Facebook, and that's their primary source of revenue. But in our industry, it is very lifestyle oriented. It's not a fast $20 purchase. And so you've got to think about that research cycle and all the different reviews they're going to read, videos they're going to watch, sites they're going to compare, and just make sure you're a part of that journey. So to go back to your question, yes, people still need to invest in it, but making sure that it's in sort of correlation with where your other parts of advertising are in the digital sense. You want to make sure you've got it allocated right from a percentage standpoint. So
Yeah, not just blindly spending on it, kind of a situation. But yeah, I totally get it. But it's something you're not saying, even though some people think it's dead, you're not saying excise that from your portfolio right now. There's still ways to leverage Facebook.
Yeah, if Facebook, if we were to measure the dollars that go into Facebook and then the output, they're still doing something right. They're still a heavy advertising platform.
Okay.
I think it'll change and it'll get better in different ways, but yeah, people are still there. You've got an audience. You just need to engage with them the right way and make sure you have the right content.
And Vanessa, a follow-up, because I think because you made the statement about how you guys really utilize some interesting voices on Facebook. Do you guys, there's a question that came in about whether or not you utilize Marketplace at all or have any relationship there?
Not yet on Facebook itself. We of course, all the data is wonderful because we can see the engagement based on whatever is posted, so we can see what's happening there. But no, we're not using Marketplace currently.
Okay, and Michael, just a quick follow-up with you too, as far as the Instagram aspect of things. Not that everybody's going to suddenly get clients from Abu Dhabi, but that is a fantastic story. Mm-hmm. So the question is, since you've seen that success, can you talk a little bit about how you then, since we're talking really about if we're running a business, talking about our portfolio of social media channels. So what's your percentage, would you say, of your spend toward Instagram then? Is that your largest, that where you're putting the most? I mean, give us an idea as far as how you kind of lay it across the landscape.
So we're definitely geared more towards a hybrid business. So for us, we're not only working via social media, e-commerce, et cetera. We have our brick and mortar stores where we're catering to designers as well. So it's definitely more of a hybrid. As far as what we're putting back towards social media, normally we put about 20% back into these sales. So any sales that are coming out of social media, we're normally putting that back into it. What we do that really helps us a lot via, let's say, Instagram, you have these clients who will come into your location, and let's say, regardless of what state you're in, different clients that you'll have come in have different amounts of followers. So I think you really want to understand, like, the clients that are coming in that have a larger outreach and larger following on these social media platforms is really using it to your advantage. Really establishing a relationship with these clients, and whether it's gifting them something or whether it's giving them a discount or whatever that may be, or really just having that relationship where they want to put you and your company on their platform. And for us, because we work with a lot of entertainers, as this started to grow, we used entertainers that we do work with to really help the company grow and gain more followers and more credibility when other people knew that we were working with these people in these circles. So,
and you said something, and shame on me if this is common, and I just haven't really heard about it. David, Michael said something really interesting there. So as a rule, it sounds like they're taking a percentage of the sales that are driven through social and putting it back into social. So they use the 20%. Is that a common approach? Because that's really a unique way of doing it. You're basically saying, okay, we're gonna just commit to the fact that if we have this chunk that comes from this channel, that part of that's going to be to invest back into it. Is that a common approach, or what are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I think it's a common approach, but it might be said a little bit differently in terms of social sales versus gross sales in general. So if you were to look at the total combination of, in-store and e-commerce, most folks are taking 3 to 5, 7, 10%, depending on what you're really looking to do. And then they reinvest it back. And then of that, let's say you invested $10,000 a month across digital, you might take 20% or 25%, somewhere between 10 and 25%, and invest it back into social. So it really just depends on how you want to operate your business, whether it's by doing it just based on your e-commerce sales and then putting that back through, or a combination of both. We see a combination of both, where people are just taking their gross sales combined across all platforms and then reinvesting it back accordingly.
I just found it really interesting. Vanessa, is that something that you guys think about or utilize, or is it a little bit of a different approach? Is it more just a question of your budgeting for a certain spend on the digital side and your budget that way, or is there something like this where if you get upticks, then you're rolling some back into the process?
Yeah, we definitely budget ahead. We know we're going to do so many direct mail pieces, and then depending on the campaign, will determine what dollars we're going to put into it. So it just depends on what we're doing, and we adjust accordingly. And then we have the year before, we are also looking at the past year. How did we do? And do we want to boost something more, or but we definitely start with the budget, but we tweak as we go.
And I just the only reason I kind of really put an exclamation point on that is because I think that the part of this is that creativity and how you can boost your presence and things of that sort. And people do it differently. There's a lot of people that budget, but this is I think interesting that it's if you see this uptick in revenue, to have the discipline to fold stuff back in. I think that's an interesting takeaway, something at least for businesses to think
you gotta
about.
kind of analyze it, some of it as you go.
Yeah, it's anyway. I know I'm like going, oh, this is wow, and everybody listening to this is like going, whatever, we know that. Okay, well, we'll move on. Can we talk about product? A lot of questions that have come in is about, okay, what are the type of product lines or amount of product? What should I be putting out there from the standpoint of the things that I'm selling in my store? How do I make those choices? I know there's a lot of ways to answer this, but Michael, I'm going to start with you on this one. What would you say to someone that's a fellow retailer that's trying to figure out, well, what products and how many should I be pushing and promoting on the social media channels?
Well, via social media channels, I think you should really try to put out as much content as possible. Not overdoing it, but at least try it yourself. Try to post at least one thing per day, sometimes even two, whether it's a video, whether it's a photo, at least something a day. You want to stay relevant in someone's feed. And the other thing that you want to do is, as far as putting out product, it comes back to knowing your audience. So if you know your audience, you really know what product is working and what product isn't working. For example, if you're putting out a video and you're not getting any likes on it and it's not really being, sent to anyone else, you have an idea like this product is really not doing so well. Let me pivot and make an adjustment and, try to work on some different product. So.
Okay. Vanessa?
I would have to say one of the big things right now is people are looking for in stock. So anytime you can be posting, it is in stock, that is huge. I mean, a lot of calls we get these days is first off the bat, do you have it in stock? So really promote in stock, ready to take items.
Okay, and is there anything to be thought about as far as just sheer numbers? Do you want to just keep it to a good, small number of really promotable products versus feeling like you got to put half the catalog out there? And I'm testing Vanessa, that's a follow-up for you.
Oh, no, it's okay. We look at, because we have so much data that tells us also what people are really looking for. So, I mean, if you know that a lot of people are asking for dining or a lot of people are asking for bedroom, you can cater to that and do a lot with it. Right now, our outdoor season's gonna come up here and have us there pretty soon. So, we'll want to start doing some outdoor in stock campaigns. So we're really just looking at what people are asking, and that could change daily, weekly, but you have that data to use to tell you where to go, what to do.
David, the question I want to ask you before I ask you a little bit more about the type of items and things of that sort that make sense, or how you figure that out. Michael said about posting once per day. Since I have you guys here, I feel I'd be remiss not to ask the question as to where's the balance between posting enough and posting too much? When do you become noise and not something that people really check out? That's probably like the impossible to answer question, but I'm going to ask you as far as what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of benchmarks that people pay attention to, and it really depends on who your audience is and what type of content you have. But the sort of gold standard you would look to, like Michael said earlier, was if you can post 2 times a day, you're frequently in their cycle, in their feed, in their stories, and you're just present. And so what the content looks like can change, obviously, but a frequency of twice a day is sort of, if you can get there and have somebody sustain that, that is awesome. Not everybody can do that though. So even if you back that down and you go to once a day, you're still in an okay spot, but you should be putting stuff out there and creating content and doing short videos. And again, it doesn't have to be all product related. It can be about community events. It can be about anything really. You can make it about the culture within the company. But as long as you're present, that's important. So to answer your question, the 2 times a day is really where it's like you're dialed in and you've got enough content going out where you can start to figure out what's working well because you've got enough going in the system. And then your other, I don't want to jump ahead. Did you want to go ahead and touch on?
Pause switch there for a second, because Vanessa, since you have people who provide, who really help to populate, let's just say your Facebook at the moment, are you in agreement with what David is saying? Because it sounds like you have a variety of voices, if you will. Talk a little bit about that frequency, because that's important.
I agree with David and with Michael of keeping that content fresh and doing it as often, and 2 times a day is wonderful. I can't say we necessarily always meet that goal, but it is. And having a bit of variety it's fun. We want to be fun. We want to be the company that people look at and say, they're a fun company. I want to go in there. So we want that to reflect the culture of who we are. We want to have that expressed on Facebook. So we're going to have a little bit of variety. We're going to have current sales. We're going to have things about our culture. We're just going to have some fun, crazy videos. We're going to have check out this item. We just got it in, or this just came in stock. Got to come down and check it out. So the variety really makes a difference. It's no different than when they walk in our store. It's always changing. It's never the same.
That's a really good point. And David, like you said, it should be a steady drumbeat, is what I'm hearing you say. Should be kind of consistent. Talk about the content. The product mix though. The thoughts about that is, when is it too much? When is it not enough? Because we've got a lot of questions where people are trying to find what that balance is. If there is a standard, maybe there's not.
From a standard standpoint, I think it just depends on, it kind of all goes back to like, who is your audience? And if you know the audience that you have and you can measure the types of content that they engage with, then you can start to predict and better understand what sort of product frequency or mix I need to put out there. And I think Vanessa had a great example about, outdoor season coming up. In North Carolina, we're going to be approaching that in the next month, 2 months or so, once it gets out of the different seasons that we have. Yeah. But a high frequency of in-stock outdoor product is probably a good idea. And I think that more people, as they get into that buying cycle, are going to be looking for things that are in stock. And so to have that as a little bit, maybe more often than you might in other periods of the year, I think that's okay. And I also think that when you look at certain promotions and holidays, it's okay to beef up your in-stock and certain specific products that you're trying to highlight. But again, that's sort of around these promotional periods that we see throughout the year. But in between that, you've got opportunities to highlight your culture, your community, anything that helps just keep people engaged and excited. And again, I wanted to make this point too. Within social commerce, it's not always just about making the sale, but it's also a great opportunity to meet your next new hire. And we've seen that play out a lot of different ways where people are saying, oh gosh, I really like the way that you guys, put yourself out there on social platforms. So I felt welcomed. I felt like it was an environment that I would operate in really well. And because of that, I'm interested in this role or this gap that you have or whatever the position might be. But I think there's a lot of folks out there looking to see how active you are and what your voice is and what type of personality you have as a business in that sense. And that's equally as good as making a sale, as making sure that you find the right people that you can draw in.
at a time when finding people is a challenge for everybody. So that's a unique piece of this I had not thought about. So that's a wonderful point. I appreciate that. So I'm going to throw this one at you, Michael, because there's some questions here that have come in. And by the way, I know it looks like I'm disinterested. I take notes and I'm looking down. So please know that I'm not texting anybody while we're talking. But can you talk about measurement, please? Because there's a lot of questions that have come in saying, what are the best measurements to determine the effectiveness of these different channels? Can you give a little insight to folks as to what you all do?
So I think for us, for example, let's kind of focus on Instagram. So for us, when we're posting, we'll look at the amount of views that it's getting, and we'll also look at how many messages and how many people are actually looking to reach out to us about the product. So for us, if we get really good feedback, whether it's someone sharing the video with other people and the numbers are high, for us as a company, if we see something's doing very well, we'll get behind the product. And what I mean by that, whether it's us stocking a product and knowing that this product is doing well on e-commerce or social commerce, for us, we'll get behind it and start stocking it. Because right now, stock is key. I think Vanessa nailed it. I think if you have stock right now of a product that's doing very well, I mean, you've got it. And we're not in a position where a sale matters as much now as it did in the past. Because right now, if you have stock, I think people are willing to spend the money on getting it immediately as opposed to waiting. Some of the vendors that we work with can be exceptionally long dates. So,
Michael, is a lot of what you're doing intuitive though? Because what I don't hear you saying is, well, we've got a system for this. It seems like you guys are just very actively monitoring. Is that fair? Or do you have some system that you're using that are helping you kind of gather this measurement data?
So we do. We actually have a tool that we use for analytics that'll basically tell us what particular post is doing well. And also, let's say if it is on Facebook, well, Facebook's a little bit more specific. You could really target your audience specifically, whether it's an area, age, etc. So, on Facebook, it's a little bit where you could do it on your own. You could basically gauge it in order to target your audience specifically. But I think that there's many different types of analytics that you could use on Instagram that'll basically tell you how a post is doing. And then you could also see yourself on Instagram how a post is doing based off engagement as well.
And do you have specific people in your company that's their focus, or is there an expectation that everybody be a consumer of the social media that you guys put out?
So we have our designers that are working in-house that are answering leads and kind of developing these relationships with these clients who are reaching out. And I think that's the one thing that we haven't spoke about, which is probably the most difficult thing, because as your following grows, the more you post, the more engagement you have. You really need to be able to respond fast enough. That's the real key, because I think that the engagement is one thing, the response is another. I think that right now we're living in a time where people want a response immediately. And if you're waiting more than 24 hours to respond to someone, they may think that you're just not interested or whatever the case may be. So just being ready for the influx of new clientele is very, very important. And we have
Vanessa, are your people that are providing a lot of the Facebook content, are they also doing what Michael's talking about here? Are they also responding? What do you feel about this whole need to respond quickly aspect of this management of the social media channels you have?
I couldn't agree with them more. We actually have a dedicated person now we call it lead management, and that's her role. She is watching for web inquiries. She's watching Facebook. She's watching Podium. She's watching Instagram. She's watching every platform, making sure that we're getting back. She's the one that's also cultivating that client to get them into the store. House calls are big for us, so getting them in is huge, but she's the one that's doing that. She's the one online chatting with them and engaging, and now she can turn them over to a design associate, but she is the one that is qualifying them, I guess you would say, and making sure. And then we're putting a lot of systems in place for more automation and just, again, measurement tools to make sure that we're doing everything that we can to, again, be relevant and give everybody what they want, being able to.
Well, one thing that I'm sorry to interrupt, that actually worked really well for us, we have a program that we had developed for leads in particular. So we have a leads program that actually comes in. So anything that does end up coming in from, let's say Instagram or other social media platforms, will automatically be integrated into our leads program that we designed specifically for our company. And what it does is it stays fresh within our designers that are working in the showroom, so they know what leads are available. We'll put a value to that lead. So for example, let's say someone's looking for a product and the product that they're looking for is above $10,000. So that's, a lead that's a better lead than let's say something that'll be a lower ticket. So there's different priority levels. And what they could kind of do is when they come in the morning, they'll know what leads need to be addressed at that particular time. And basically assign tasks to different people within the company. For example, if someone spoke to David on Tuesday and they want to speak to David again on Friday, that person will come in on Friday. They'll know that lead came in from Instagram, what they're interested in, what product, what fabric, etc. And David's ready to take that call on Friday.
So David, jump in, because you've heard some great insights here from a single store operator to a multi. So give us an idea about what you've heard from both, and what makes sense, and what are some of the things that retailers should make sure that they're doing in responsiveness.
Yeah, so responsiveness has become more and more heightened as an important aspect of doing business today in the last couple of years. And we've seen it play out years ago. To do a kind of comparison of industries, in the automotive industry, if we want to really think about fast response, staying on top of a lead, understanding the value and seeing that through to a sale. In the automotive industry, I believe their response time that a lot of GMs manage their BDC departments to is something like sub 5 minutes. And so if you think about, gosh, somebody asked me a question, and then if we were all to sit in silence for 5 minutes, that's a long time to be silent and not respond. So even think about, today, we've seen the furniture industry have a longer wait time or a longer response time than we'd like to see, just because we're anxious about somebody reaching out and having an interest. So I think there's a lot of work that members can do to make sure that their operation is set up to be responsive and to be fast. But I totally agree. I think the responsiveness is something that's super important. I love the system that Michael mentioned about, having a value to that lead and understanding, yeah, if I were to rate the value of this and I'm a commissioned person, or I know that I've got an objective to meet, heck yeah, I'm going to make sure I'm on top of that. I've got all the things I need. I know how fast I can respond. And that helps me be efficient at my job as an associate. So, making sure, one, that you bring all this stuff together is important, but then on top of that, you've got to have good processes. And that goes from Podium to email to form submits on the website to chats on Instagram. Wherever it is, I think you've got to think about, what is my process? How fast do I want to respond? And then how do I hold my team accountable to these benchmarks and make sure that everybody's being responsive and staying on top of stuff.
So quick question that just came in. What should the response time be then? Is there a standard for how quickly our retail friends should respond?
I mean, I think I'd be silly not to say like instant, but I think there's also, I understand, not everybody's sitting at their phone at 11 o'clock at night. And so I feel like during business hours, there should be let's call it sub 5 minutes, sub 10 minutes, if you really want to be generous. And that's assuming someone's not looking at this all the time. Okay. Outside of business hours, there are tools or at least messages you can put up to say, hey, this is outside of business hours. It's an automated response and somebody will be with you or get back to you within X time frame when we open up. The tools today that people have at their disposal, like a Podium or another chat out there, they make it really easy to get this communication instantly. You can have that on a computer, on a phone. You can route those messages to certain people. You can have the ability to log in and go grab those messages and claim those leads. So I think, again, with the right setup and operational, guidelines and guardrails, you should have a fast response. And I know there's probably a lot of people who are out there saying like, well, gosh, like I can't look at my phone all day, but I think that's a hot customer. If somebody's reaching out, why not?
You've set the bar pretty high. I mean, sub 10 minutes is, that's quick for anybody. Any quick comments on that from either Vanessa or Michael?
I would just have to say that's why we hired a dedicated person right now, being a single store, because we saw the value in that there has to be someone, because we don't sit around and just watch our phones all day either. We're out on the floor, we're doing stuff. So having someone who's not on the floor and is just, that's their role amongst some other things. But they also take care of the website, the back end of the website. So they're the things that they're all connected to while they're doing that, kind of make that role even more worthwhile.
Okay, here's an interesting one. I'm going to make this another toss up. This is kind of fun. You guys kind of like this whole game show approach, so I'll toss this one up. So the question came in, should I really care about what my competition is doing on these channels and their trends? Or do I need to be singularly focused on doing the job for my store better than anybody else? Go ahead, guys, have at it.
So, hold on 1 sec. I just have the client here.
Uh-oh.
Just give me 1 moment. I'm so sorry, guys.
No problem. I love that he's doing business in the middle of a webinar. I don't think it's ever happened before. Vanessa, what do you think? Do you pay attention to what your competition is doing on the social media side, or do you focus more on what it is that you're doing?
No, we do pay attention, and we often find they're copying us. So I think that is a compliment. I think that's good. But we do keep an eye to see what they're doing and see, what their traffic is like. We have a dedicated person that just analyzes our data, which is really helpful to us. And so he's the one out there watching our competition and giving us information that is helpful. Like we have someone that's a competitor that's going out of business right now. So we're definitely keeping an eye on them.
Sure.
Because, somebody going out of business, that's going to affect, of course, us as well. So I think it's important to know what your competition is doing, but we do run our own race.
David, real quick, when we talk about that, is there a danger in having putting too much attention on what somebody else is doing and taking the eye off what you're doing, or do you think that's instructive?
I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, I don't think you dedicate all of your time on what everybody else is doing. It's good to get inspiration from your competitors because, we all know that, new ideas are hard to come by. So if somebody else has that same creativity, output, and we can mesh and build that into our own way, then why not? I think we all should. But at the same time, I do think it's smart to pay attention just to know, gosh, they're promoting this stuff is in stock. And so I know that might be a gap that I have inside my business. Or, they're posting a lot about their community outreach and it seems like they've got a ton of response from it. So maybe we should do that and highlight all the things that we do. So I think what goes around will come around, and you've got to pay attention. But at the same time, you have to know that you've got your own unique voice and you've got your own team of people, and you need to focus on that. And if you do that and take care of everybody, then it comes back around. So I don't know if that really answers your question. I think it's smart to pay attention, but don't make that your sole focus every day.
Gotcha. And that was actually a question that came in from one of the people watching today. I guess my follow-up to you, Michael, is that this is a great question that also came in. This kind of plays into everything we've been talking about. You talk about a lot of sophistication with what you all are doing, but do you have to spend an inordinate amount of money to do it right, or can even a smaller retailer be effective, do you think, doing a lot of this on their own? Is a lot of it so intuitive that they can do it on their own? What are your thoughts about that from where you sit?
So I think the smaller retailers can be just as effective as the larger. I think that it's one thing that David had mentioned was the after hours response time, and I think that's very important. So we have in our company we have actual 24-hour chat service, live chat, and it's something that it took us many years to actually do, and it really was a good thing. It is working out exceptionally well, much better than we ever anticipated. I think it's very interesting the amount of people that actually come home after work that are busy throughout the day. Your store is closed and they're still looking to shop. So even on the after hours, we're getting so many leads that are turning into transactions after hours. And when I say after hours, not even like 9 o'clock, it could be like a 12, 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning transaction. Because I just think that, the climate has really changed. I think you have a lot of people that are getting home late and busy, et cetera, and they're on their phone 12 o'clock at night, 1 o'clock, whatever it is, and they're making purchases at different times. It's really changed as opposed to your 9 to 5, 9 to 7 retail hours. So I think it's important to give it a shot, even if you're a smaller retailer, to have somebody on staff that's willing to answer, even if you go up to, let's say, 1 in the morning, or to give it a shot for, let's say, 3-4 weeks and see what comes out of it. Because for us, it really did do well, and it's continuing to do well.
Interesting. Vanessa, any insights similarly to that question?
I love it, actually, and I wish we, and that's something we should take a look at doing, because people really are up at night, just exactly like you said. They're getting off work, they're doing whatever, and you know this because they're sending you a chat request and your automated message comes up and saying, we really appreciate, but we will reach you in, whatever. And so if you were to just take a look and analyze those alone and see how many, you would know maybe what you're leaving on the table. So excellent point, Michael, that it's really neat that you did do that.
And David, what we're talking about here is low tech, man. I mean, we're just talking about being responsive and trying something, and we're always trying to find ways to help fellow retailers without breaking the bank. Is there some simplicity here that's really poetry in this social media game?
Yeah, I think Vanessa said it well. Look at specifically for chat and even after hours. Michael might have international clients and thinking about their hours and how they operate and how that lines up with you. You've got to take that into consideration. But even what Vanessa said really well, I think, is that you look at the gap between your automated responses and when you kind of open back up and see how many you've got and evaluate what you leave on the table, and who knows what that can turn into. Because even if it's a 1 sale a day, you multiply that by every day of the year, it really adds up. And if you're not responding and somebody else is, we all know today that it's harsh competition. So you've just got to be prepared for that and make sure you've got everything in place.
And I think from a personal standpoint, I know that I've done this. I know that a lot of times I've late at night sent a chat thing, and in my head, I'm not expecting a response. I'm not. I'm just putting it out there because I'm thinking about it right now. Let me do this, waiting for that response or that automatic response. Man, if I get, and it's happened, if I get pinged at that moment by somebody responding, not only am I like, wow, that's pretty incredible, but let me tell you something, that takes my feeling about that entity from here to here. Yeah. It just does, right? I mean, that's just the way it is. So I've been to that barbecue, believe me. This has been a fabulous conversation. I just want to point out I'm just going to pick out a few of the biggest takeaways that I've taken notes here on. And there's some of these are just, I think really, really golden. First of all, we talked about the influence of TikTok, and for those that are trying to decide whether or not to get in it, just to make sure that whatever you do there, to connect it back to one of your other social media channels, so you can truly start to track that much better than you probably would in any other case. We also want to mention that we've got a couple of standards here that David threw out, saying you should be posting twice a day would be the sweet spot, and he also then threw down the challenge that said if you're going to respond to anything that comes in as an inquiry online in sub 10 minutes, that's your goal. That's a toughie, but that is your goal there. Also, we talked about, I thought it was really great here too, that a concept to think about. If you're just budgeting for your advertising for the next year and social and everything else, think about maybe folding back in a percentage of those gains that you do see that come in through the social side. There might be a way to really grow your presence. And also, while you might find that some of the social channels are lagging behind others, you need to really analyze exactly what that is from the standpoint of, where you're seeing the positives, where you're seeing those leads, and don't just throw the baby out with the bathwater here. Spread it out and kind of make sure that you know what you got going. So listen, that is absolutely fabulous. I want to point out, by the way, I did at the beginning, but of course this and our other webinars are on demand if you'd like them at myhfa.org. And as always, I would be remiss not to suggest that there's power in membership here at HFA, providing not just things like this fabulous webinar and this subject matter, but the tools to help you in your business. I want to personally thank David Enos from Phelps Digital. David, thanks as always. I really appreciate your help and your insights today. It's been terrific. Michael, I love it. You're the first person we've ever had on a webinar that had to stop to do some business in the middle of this, but business comes first. So that was Tracy
who walked in. I don't know if you noticed.
I saw it.
You're going to go down in HFA webinar lore with that one. Thank you very much. And he's with the co-founder of Unlimited Furniture, and also Vanessa Leeson, the general manager of Michael Allen Furniture and Design. Appreciate all of you. And of course, as always, I want to say to everybody, we wish you good sales, good health, And we will look forward to seeing you next time. On behalf of everybody here at HFA, I'm Mark Schumacher. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks.